So Virji, can you tell us your name and today's date, please?
Hanji, my name is Nirvair Singh, and today is August 25th, 2013.
How old were you in 1984?
I was 20 years old.
And what were you doing at that time? What was your occupation?
I was a college student studying in Amritsar.
So in June 1984, you were in Amritsar?
I was in Amritsar, living in a village 20 miles outside Amritsar, but attending college in Amritsar.
Okay. And do you remember how you heard about the violence in Amritsar in June 84?
It was all around. It was just happening in the villages, in the city, and then just students from college being picked up or being harassed by police in many cases, interrogated, tortured, and then released.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll hear from the students themselves, or just random acts of violence in my own village or the neighboring villages. So it was all around.
Mm-hmm. And the attack in June 84, do you remember how you came to know there was an attack?
Yes. I was there when the escalation was happening. So even before June 84, the clampdown and the build-up of the security forces in Amritsar or around Amritsar, there were telltale signs that something was going to happen or something big was happening already.
Mm-hmm.
And first week of June, when things really escalated, I was in the village, so it was very hard to get any news because there was media blackout. But people who managed to get out of Amritsar, including my own father, who was at the Bar Sahib on June 1st, he gave us first-hand account of what was happening. And then just hearing from neighbors or neighbors' neighbors. So it was hard to get information, credible information, especially from the media, because it was controlled and there was complete media blackout. But there were people who witnessed the firings, the killings, and then there were people who either knew someone who survived and escaped or was let go out of the Bar Sahib. So that's how I found out.
Do you remember how you felt through this first week of June as you were hearing news?
I felt deeply hurt, and then very angry at times, confused also, didn't know what to do. It was very hard to make sense of what was going on, because growing up in Punjab and attending schools where you are reminded daily in the school assembly that India is a great place and you sing praises of the country, it was very, very difficult to put those two things together, what you were taught in school and then what you were experiencing, because you didn't feel as if you were being treated fairly, or your voices were heard, or you were even given the rights that you deserved as a citizen.
Was anyone close to you? You mentioned your father was in Darbar Sahib, but anyone else close to your family or friends who were directly hurt or killed in the violence?
At Darbar Sahib, not someone from immediate family, but there are people in extended family circle. There was one young man who was picked up out of the Bar Sahib, and we never found out what happened to him later on. And there is another account that's of somebody old, somebody who was 60 plus, and she was part of a group of villagers who decided to march towards the city in protest, because our place of worship was under attack or it was being desecrated. And their group was fired upon by the army, and she died with a bullet in her head. And she is not closely related to me, but she is related to me through my Masi's side.
And in November 1984, where were you when the violence happened in November '84?
I was, again, doing the same thing, attending classes in Amritsar and living at the village.
And do you remember how you heard about the violence?
Yes, I heard about it late afternoon on radio. And the way that news broke, again, it was very confusing. And in the news, it was mentioned clearly that two Sikh bodyguards were the perpetrators of killing the Prime Minister. And there was no mention of what was happening in the city, the violence against the Sikhs, or the targeted killing of the Sikhs. There was no mention of that, even the next day or the day after.
When did you find out about the targeted killing?
It came out on the third day, if I remember correctly. That's when they started mentioning that there were quote-unquote riots. And then we knew that there was something bad happening. And then my dad and I, we visited one of our relatives who was living on outskirts of Delhi 2 months later. And then we found out from him exactly what transpired.
And were any family members, you mentioned this relative, or any friends targeted by the violence in Delhi in '84 or anywhere in India in '84, November?
Yes, this relative who we visited in January of '85, he didn't suffer any damage, so to speak, but their house was attacked by a mob that just came together out of their village. They lived outside the village at a farm. And he had to use his own weapons to push the mobs back. And it happened two nights in a row. And he was very, very hurt at that time when he was giving us telling us the account. And because he was elderly, I remember exactly his words. He said it was down to either killing whoever tried to climb the wall, or if they managed to break through the wall, then just killing my family first, including two of his teenage daughters.
Did your family continue to live where they used to live after '84?
Yes, we continued to live in the village, but parents were very concerned. I was the eldest in the family. I was 20 years old, my brother was 18, my sister was 16. So the parents were very concerned, and they started thinking about getting us out one way or the other. So my dad tried to get me out of Punjab in '84, didn't work. Again, tried in '85, didn't work. And then in '87, we were able to make things work in a way that I was able to get out. And my brothers continued living there for another 2 years, and then we managed to get him out as well.
And did you talk to anybody about the violence after '84? Do you remember discussing it, talking about it?
Not for a long time. Not for the 4 or 5 years that ensued '84. It was just too much to deal with. I think the emotions were very raw. And it was still very, very difficult to find any facts, any credible information, any reports to understand what happened. It was really after I turned 30 and had kids that I thought it was important for them to know. So as they grew up, I started talking to my son first, he's older, and later on my daughter. And then I started talking to friends and encouraging them to share their experiences, because otherwise each one of us were dealing with emotions and with whatever happened in our own ways. And it was so complex, it was so emotionally charged that none of us could make sense out of it alone. And anytime I got a chance, especially sitting with friends or teenagers now, I encourage them to read, especially read reports that have been published by the Human Rights Commission, Amnesty International, or INSAF, for example. And but for the first 4 or 5 years immediately after, I didn't want to talk about it at all.
And immediately after, or even later, did you ever have any sort of flashbacks, nightmares about things you'd heard, seen, talked about in '84?
Yes, yes. Some of the, I would say, kids who I had attended high school with, and some of the teenagers who were in college, hearing their stories that somebody got picked up and you never find out about them, or somebody got killed at a bus stop or at a road crossing somewhere in the countryside. That continued to sort of haunt my memories, but it subsided later on. But for the first 4 or 5 years, it used to be in the dreams or in the thoughts all the time.
Why, in your opinion, did all of this happen in '84?
I think the first part, the June part, it happened because of 2 main reasons. Number one, we as a community, even though we had very legitimate reasons to protest, to ask for the rights, or especially the rights to our natural resources for Punjab, that we as a community didn't really understand all the manipulations and all the different ways the central government was using to ignore our voice or to discredit our claims. Second part was just the politics, especially politics of at the national level in India. I think that had a lot to do with it, because politicians will do anything to stir people's emotions to get votes. I think it had a lot to do with that.
Anything else you'd like to share with us?
I'm glad that you're doing this, even though it's very late. We should have done this all along. But knowing stories, especially knowing people's accounts firsthand, recording our history, and then analyzing it, that's very important. So I'm really glad that you're doing it.
Thank you. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Vaheguru Ji Ki
Vaheguru Ji Ki
Fateh.